Our story today begins by recounting the tale of the hero Vermouth and his 4 companions. They embarked on a journey to subdue those who abhorred this world, the Demon Kings. 3 of the 5 Demon Kings had been defeated, leaving only 2. In this legendary group, we had the great Vermouth, the wise Sienna, the faithful Anise, the brave Moron, and Hamel, the fool. Together, they formed the most powerful group, although Hamel always envied Vermouth and considered him his rival. When they were in search of the 4th Demon King, a treacherous attack was directed at Vermouth. Hamel jumped in front and blocked with his own body. Thus, Vermouth advanced and sliced the creature in just one strike. Everyone rushed to see how Hamel was, but unfortunately, it was already too late. Even facing death, he claimed it was an honorable death and asked Vermouth to defeat the Demon Kings for him. Anise prayed for him. Moron was a brave warrior, and Hamel, in truth, liked Sienna, but had never said anything. This irritated him because an anonymous author called him the fool while the others had titles like great, wise, faithful, and brave. In fact, Hamel, who died 300 years ago, reincarnated as a descendant of the hero Vermouth, Eugene Lionheart, 13 years old. 300 years ago, Vermouth had many concubines besides his wife. After siring several children, today the family is recognized as the direct lineage of the children of the official wife, while Eugene was part of the collateral lineage, descended from the concubines. Collateral lineages are prohibited from using real swords in training mana before the lineage ceremony. That is why Hamel, or rather, Eugene, used wooden swords, but that would end that day. He began striking a wooden scarecrow so forcefully that it broke in half. His father was startled, as Eugene had broken another scarecrow. Looking at that 13-year-old body, it seemed he was born strong. Even though he was his son, his father was sometimes startled by that fierce look with not a drop of innocence. Eugene complained that the blacksmith's skills were poor, as the scarecrow broke again. He wanted to teach the blacksmith a lesson, but his father, very kind, said he would just warn him. The continuation of the lineage ceremony would be the next day. This ceremony is a tradition that occurs every 10 years in the Lionheart family. In it, both the direct and collateral lineages gather all children between 10 and 15 years old in the main house to compete and show their talents. However, the direct lineage, unlike the collateral, can train using real swords and develop their mana. Therefore, it is a great injustice. They are just preventing the collateral lineage from rising to power. Meanwhile, his father thinks he has incredible talent but still believes there is a big difference between him and the direct lineage. So, he says that even though he is talented, he shouldn't try to compete with the children from the main house. Eugene responds that he won't confront them, but of course, he will. It's just going to be a skills tournament against 10-year-old kids. So boring I feel like sleeping, he thinks. In this ceremony, there will be 3 children from the direct lineage and 6 from the collateral lineage competing. From the direct lineage, there is the son of the first wife and the twins from the second. Among the collateral, only 2 have any authority, the rest are considered useless. Eugene breaks another scarecrow, determined to see how much these descendants have grown. The next day, he travels by carriage to the main house, reflecting on his past life. He thought he was a genius because since childhood he had no trouble learning new things. However, that changed when he met Vermouth. That's when he realized he was nothing compared to a genius, as Vermouth was a master of sword and magic, also called the god of war. There was also Sienna, the youngest witch leader of the magic tower, Anise, with a rotten heart, but called the saint of the empire, and Moran, the brave, who ended up creating his own kingdom. He knew they all lived well in the end, but wondered why the Demon King was still alive. After Hamel's death in the castle of the Demon King of Incarceration, Vermouth made a promise with the Demon King. Thanks to that promise, the war ended, and the world became peaceful, a peace that lasts until now, 300 years later. The butler informs that from now on, the lands belong to the Lionheart, but it will still take a while to reach the main mansion of the family. Eugene asks if it isn't inconvenient to have such large lands, but the butler explains that portals are installed, so it's alright. Eugene questions why they are going by carriage, and they finally arrive at the main mansion. There is no warm reception. The Lionheart symbol, a lion, can only be used by direct descendants. As he was the first to arrive, the butler takes him to the guest house. The maid, Nina, introduces herself, saying she will be responsible for serving Eugene while he is there. Seeing that she is young, Eugene asks how old she is. She responds that she is 16 years old and has just finished her training. So, they've sent a newly trained one for me, Eugene thinks. He asks when his relatives will arrive, and Nina replies that in a maximum of 4 days, everyone will be there. Eugene asks her to show him the training area because even away from home, he needs to work. Meanwhile, in another corner, a young man asks who that guy is, hearing that he's from the rural area of the empire. He imagines Eugene must know more about hoeing than using a sword and bets his carriage smells of manure. A girl next to him is all happy, wanting to punish Eugene. These two are the twins from the direct lineage. However, the big brother says they won't punish him, but rather give him a friendly warning. And when the other was looking out the window, the girl just stared at him, making him freeze in fear. Eugene is training with a spear, reflecting on how he never felt lazy about training in his past life. Since reincarnating, he has been pushing his body to the extreme, as no matter how hard he trains, the body always resists. After all, this body is a descendant of the Great Vermouth, even if it's from the collateral lineage. Meanwhile, Nina thinks he's amazing, moving so fast with sandbags on his arms and the spear. The twins arrive and ask Nina what he's doing. She replies that he's training, but the rude one asks again. Eugene intervenes, telling the jerk that he's training. The twin's sister comments that the bumpkin called him an idiot. The twin, irritated, orders Eugene to apologize, but he calmly apologizes. The twin doesn't understand, as he expected Eugene to bow his head. They are both the same age, so Eugene sees no reason to bow. The twin orders Eugene to clean the carriage that brought him. Eugene simply tells Nina to clean it. The twin, furious, insists that Eugene must clean it, saying he's ignoring an order from Kian Lionheart. Kian introduces himself formally, along with his sister, Seal Lionheart. He challenges Eugene to a duel for ignoring his order. Eugene responds that Kian shouldn't use that word so easily and could leave him alone. Kian taunts Eugene, asking if he's afraid to duel. Eugene asserts that he is neither afraid nor interested in dueling or apologizing. Kian is angry, suggests that Eugene's parents didn't teach him what honor is. Eugene then drops the weights on the ground, accepting the fight. Kian is surprised, as he thought the weights were just decorations. Kian, unable to back down, throws a handkerchief on the ground, challenging Eugene to a duel. Eugene accepts and, at the first opportunity, hits Kian's chest with the wooden spear, declaring himself the winner as Kian vomits on the ground. Seal complains, saying it was cowardice and the duel was not honorable. Eugene argues that the duel begins as soon as the handkerchief is thrown. Seal suggests that Eugene trained in mana, which he denies, explaining that the collateral lineage is only allowed to do so after the ceremony. Seal admits that the attack was so fast that even if her brother wasn't unprepared, he would have been hit. Eugene comments that her eyes are not just decorations, as he noticed that Kian instinctively stepped back, showing some potential, but he's still far from being a true descendant of Vermouth. Kian finally gets up, insisting it was cowardice. Eugene thinks that maybe, being twins, they both say the same thing. He says that if Kian is an honorable descendant of the family, he needs to admit his defeat. At that moment, a man arrives, calling for the young master. Since he didn't have a lion on his chest, Eugene deduced that he must be a hired knight. Kian went crying to the man's lap, saying that he challenged the country bumpkin to a duel and lost. The man introduced himself as the one in charge of instructing young Master Kian and asked what had happened there. Eugene explained that Kian started the fight and insulted his father. Kian denied it, but Eugene insisted that he had said his father had no honor, insulting not only him but also his family. That was reason enough for Eugene to accept the duel. The man, Heiser, took the young master to tend to his wounds, while Eugene went to eat. Nina arrived and informed that the other young masters planned to arrive the next morning, and the ceremony should start soon. Eugene went outside, pondering on how to wipe out the Vermouth descendants and trying not to get annoyed by it. In the main house, Kian's mother, the second wife of the direct lineage, learned that Kian challenged a kid from the collateral lineage and lost. She was furious and threw a fan at his chest, criticizing him for losing in a single strike. Even as Kian complained, she silenced him and asked Heiser if that kid had never trained in mana. Heiser confirmed that Eugene had no trace of mana in his body. She asked Seal how Kian lost, and Seal explained that he was hit by Eugene's fast spear. Irritated, the mother slapped Kian, saying he lost to inferior beings to a kid who didn't even have mana. She said she wanted to kill Heiser, but couldn't because he was favored by her husband. So, she ordered Heiser to train Kian so he would never embarrass the family again. Before leaving, she told Seal to stay close to Eugene, although she wanted to kill him, but that would make her the prime suspect. In the Lionheart family, homicides attract the attention of the family guardians. Seal promised she would befriend Eugene. The next day, 3 heirs of the collateral lineage arrived, Deacon, Hansen, and Jeez. While Eugene trained with his weights, Nina came to warn that they had arrived, as well as the family leader. Eugene needed to greet them immediately. Without changing clothes, he went as he was, sweaty. The twins' mother, the second wife, was there, as well as the first wife with her eldest son, the family heir. The family chief, Gilead Lionheart, arrived accompanied by his younger brother, Guillaume. Gilead commented on how Kian had grown and greeted the twins. He announced they would have a meal together with the collateral lineage children to discuss the ceremony. At dinner, two new faces, Gargus and Desera, arrived with the family chief, using portals, as they came from families with high prestige among the collateral lines. There was a blonde among them that Eugene didn't know. Seal asked the same question. The blonde was Loberian, the master of the Red Tower of Magic. Eugene choked, as Loberian should be the disciple of the disciple of the disciple of Sienna, who 300 years ago became the master of the Green Tower, being the youngest tower master. She completely reconstructed the magical books and patterns of the kingdom and continued to teach and advise students. That's why the masters of the Red and Green Towers still have Sienna as the Grand Master. The family chief asks if he is Eugene because he heard that his son insulted Eugene and his father. Since Eugene won the duel, he's better than the other. So, he tells Kian that he's not ashamed of his defeat, but disappointed that he feared his response. Since the duel started with Kian's insult and, even after losing, he didn't apologize, Kian needs to learn to honor not only himself but also his opponent. Finally, Kian apologizes to Eugene. The chief asks if it was Eugene's father who taught him. Eugene replies that his father only taught the basics, and the rest he learned on his own. The chief comments that this ceremony will be fun to watch. After settling family matters, they can finally eat. He explains that the reason for this meeting is to clarify the ceremony, although he believes the methods are unfair, as the collateral line cannot train with mana or even use a real weapon. Thus, it's impossible for them to win. The chief continues, saying that in this ceremony, 3 of his children will participate. However, he doesn't just want to test the potential of his children but also of the other children who bear the Lionheart name. Eugene thinks this descendant is a better man than Vermouth himself. Continuing, the chief says that in this ceremony, they will have external help from the master of the Red Tower. He snaps his fingers and reveals that they will all explore a labyrinth he created. They will enter through different entrances and must defeat an elite monster in the center. For that, they'll need to go through various battles and traps until they get there. All the events that happen will be illusions created with magic, so nothing they feel will be real, just an action-packed adventure. If one of the 9 defeats the chief, the ceremony ends, and everyone will receive points based on their contribution. A chubby boy asks if it will be okay if they can't escape. The chief replies that if he's afraid, he can stay at the entrance. Eugene asks what they'll receive if they defeat the chief, and the family leader says he'll allow them to take an item from the family treasure chamber. Eugene gets excited, thinking about winning the ceremony and taking whatever he wants from the treasure chamber. The 2 who arrived with the chief ask if he really won a duel against Kian. Eugene confirms, and if they have nothing else to say, he'll be on his way. Even with the buff guy telling him to wait, Eugene leaves and goes to the training field, this time with a sword. The 2 continue to watch from afar, until the buff guy approaches, takes off his shirt, and says that Eugene can touch his muscles. Eugene finds this strange. The buff guy explains that his family has a secret muscle growth medicine that accelerates growth without accumulating mana in the body and has no side effects. He asks if Eugene is interested. The other person arrives, saying they heard he used a spear against Kian and wants to know why he's using a sword now. Eugene responds that he can use both. She asks for a fight since her specialty is the spear. Eugene accepts because it's easier to deal with her than with the buff guy trying to sell muscle medicine. So, the battle begins, while the buff guy flaunts his body and acts as a referee. And this reminded Eugene of another idiot he knew. Now, in their stances, the girl was furious, thinking he couldn't use both sword and spear. Therefore, she would show the true art of the spear. When the battle began, she lunged forward, but upon analyzing her opponent, she saw he had no openings. Nonetheless, she attacked, and he defended. Then, an incessant attack began while the other defended. Even Eugene acknowledged the potential she had with a spear, but she still wasn't a match for him. So, he broke her attack and asked if she couldn't even land a single hit. Irritated, she went for it again, and the battle continued. She attempted a sideways attack, thinking he was unprepared, but he merely stepped on her spear. To him, the battle was already won. Eugene went to sleep but was awakened by the muscular guy, who wanted to join forces. Eugene recalled they said each would enter through a different entrance, so it didn't make sense. But Gargus argued that even if the entrances were different, the destination was the same. The family twins would probably join forces, so he wanted to meet at the center to face the chief. Sure he could defeat the chief alone, Eugene asked why they were so eager to kill the chief. The response was that, in the lineage ceremony, the collateral line had never won. But this time, they had a chance because they had her, Gargus, and Eugene, who managed to defeat Kian. They invited him to defeat the direct lineage. Meanwhile, in the second wife's house, she was thinking that with the Tower Master present, there was a chance he would take Iod as his disciple since he always liked magic more than anything else. If he became the Tower Master's disciple, he would have to leave the main family for a while, allowing the twins to evolve while Iod practically gave up the position. Also, there was the problem of her son being defeated by a country bumpkin, but if his talents were so incredible, this defeat by Kian could be erased. 3 days later, the lineage continuation ceremony finally began. The Tower Master gave magical light to everyone, saying they should shape the light while visualizing the weapon in their minds. Everyone began creating their weapons. Seal asked what to do if they broke, but since everything was made of magic, the weapons would never break inside the labyrinth. Another participant asked why they couldn't create life, but that was a taboo in magic. Everyone grabbed their weapons, and Eugene chose a short sword and a shield. Seal asked what he would do if he found her in the labyrinth. The chief replied that they could battle, as this was the lineage ceremony. However, in today's ceremony, quick judgment and cooperation were important. She gave Eugene a little smile. Was she already interested in him? The Tower Master handed everyone a necklace connected to their consciousness. If they were in real danger, the Master would intervene. If they felt they couldn't continue, they should tap the gem and shout for help. Thus, the explanation ended, and suddenly the portal appeared. The moment they crossed the portal, they would be taken to a different path. And now Eugene was entering, remembering that he had explored labyrinths to no end in his past life. Since the ceiling is closed and there are walls on both sides, it would be difficult to use a long-range weapon, which is why he chose a sword and a shield. Right at the beginning, the first unlucky one was attacked by a slime and called for help. After an hour from the start, the weakest ones had already failed, while the chief and the master watched the movements of the others through magical spheres. There was Gargus, tearing through the goblins and advancing strongly. The girl with the spear was also making her way through the monsters with her lance, and since slimes are difficult to cut, she simply avoided them, navigating the labyrinth without engaging in combat. Kian was doing well because their mother managed to obtain a map of the labyrinth before the ceremony began. He and Seal studied the map and knew everything that was there. He threw a rock at a trap and managed to pass. Meanwhile, Seal was facing the monsters without any problem. Iod, enchanted with magic, faced a monster created by magic and managed to defeat it. Even the Tower Master noticed that he had an interest in magic. The chief had already tried to hire a magic teacher, but Iod gave up because he believed he needed to become the next family leader because of his mother. Magic is not highly valued within the family. Therefore, the chief began to probe the Tower Master to make Iod his disciple. The Tower Master cannot promise anything because if Iod's potential is insufficient, he cannot become his disciple. However, the chief doesn't want to force anything, he just wants the boy to follow his dreams since Iod venerates Sienna more than Vermouth himself. The Tower Master eventually agrees because he also prefers the story of the wise Sienna. The chief, even hearing these stories, doesn't prefer Sienna or Vermouth, but rather, he didn't finish the sentence because on Eugene's camera he came face to face with a giant troll. The troll unleashed a destructive punch, but Eugene simply dodged and continued. The spectators were impressed because Eugene defeated the giant troll with just one strike. Meanwhile, Gargus encountered the same troll, but here the fight was more balanced. Even injured, Gargus managed to cut the troll's foot, then jumped and pierced its chest, finally defeating the monster. However, he fell to the ground due to the injuries. When Kian saw that monster, he thought it had been placed there not to be defeated. So, he threw a rock to the side and passed by slowly until he found Seal up ahead. Now the two were together, and she asked if, since the labyrinth was an illusion, any monster could appear there. Kian, with his heart in his mouth, asked if she was afraid of ghosts. But at that moment, he saw a face on the wall and screamed in fear. In fact, it was just the girl with the spear, who was startled by his scream and screamed too. She walked away slowly while Seal said she was running away. They began to follow her, and she ran looking for the muscular guy. When she found him, he was lying ahead, and the ground behind her began to collapse. Kian, trying to impress his sister, used mana in his body, jumped, and said he would hold her hand. But she just jumped normally. As they were about to continue the chase, they reached the center of the labyrinth, where there was a Minotaur boss. Eugene was already there and asked why the three of them arrived together. In fact, he had been there for some time and was curious to see who would arrive first. The girl with the spear asked if he accepted the proposal, since he was waiting, but he explained that even if he faced the boss alone, he could win quickly. However, it would be a shame for the others who also arrived. He explained that the boss wouldn't attack unless someone reached a certain distance. In the order they arrived, they would face the boss, each one in turn. If anyone thought they couldn't win alone, they should give up. The girl with the spear was the first in line. Meanwhile, Eugene said he would go after everyone finished. Kian thought that even though the Minotaur was big, he could defeat it alone. The girl with the spear attacked first. The Minotaur charged at her, and she tried to pierce it, but the skin was so tough that the spear didn't penetrate. It grabbed her hand and threw her away. Now it was Kian's turn, who activated his mana and sheathed his sword, but his mana disappeared. Perhaps this happened because the Tower Master made it so they couldn't use mana to attack the boss. Eugene taunted as the boss approached. Kian tried to attack but was blocked and thrown away, losing as well. Seal said she didn't want to fight, so it was Eugene's turn to show his true strength. He stated that he wasn't sure if it was possible for him to lose. The boss charged, and Eugene dodged, jumping and walking over the Minotaur's arm. When the boss tried to attack, it ended up punching itself in the face. Eugene, on the Minotaur's shoulder, prepared and slashed its neck from all sides, aiming directly at the carotid artery. He landed another precise strike until the boss finally fell. Eugene was the winner of this labyrinth, leaving everyone in awe. Everything began to disappear because the ceremony was over. The group of elders was impressed that a child from the Collateral family could defeat a Minotaur so easily. Indeed, it was true, as fighting a Minotaur alone is difficult. The master spoke about the importance of teamwork in this ceremony, as he wanted the children to work together to defeat the Minotaur. However, Eugene exceeded all expectations with ease. The chief commented that the boy had done nothing but train since he arrived there. Even in his hometown, he was known for his persistence. This boy was born to fight. The master asked if he wasn't bothered because Eugene was much better than his own sons. But the chief replied that this was a reason for joy, as the Lionheart name would shine even brighter. Leadership in the family is held by the best, so if his sons were not capable, it would rightfully be the boys. Thus, the master advised the chief to adopt Eugene into the main family. Because if a collateral lineage surpasses the direct one, that's enough for the others to disdain the main one. First, let's congratulate the children who just arrived. The chief says he saw everyone in the labyrinth and that they all did an excellent job. However, Eugene was the most spectacular among the 9 children of the ceremony. He was able to go through everything and defeat a troll without any injuries. Even Gargus is surprised, as he came out all injured from facing the troll, and thinks that if he had his family's medicine, he would grow even more. Now the chief says they should go back and rest because the banquet will be tomorrow, as he didn't expect them to come out so quickly. The master takes the children while Eugene goes with him because he will receive one of the treasures from the underground vault. The chief comments that Eugene was incredible using various weapons, but the weapon that symbolizes the family is currently the sword. However, the ancestor Vermouth could use all kinds of weapons. Vermouth wasn't the only one who mastered multiple weapons, his companion Hamel was also a great master. He even laughs, mentioning that in the books Hamel was called a fool. The chief reveals that he prefers Mr. Hamel over Vermouth himself. Eugene asks why. The chief explains that, instead of Vermouth's divine attitude, he preferred Hamel's more human qualities. Hamel felt his inferiority compared to Vermouth but never gave up. He strived to overcome his limits and, in the end, sacrificed himself for his companions. That's why even he prefers Mr. Hamel. Finally, they arrived at the treasure chamber and began to descend. The chief says Eugene is the first person, besides the chief himself, to come here. Eugene asks what's inside. The chief replies that there are inheritances accumulated for hundreds of years, including the sacred sword of the Great Vermouth, which no one can take because it can only be wielded by one person. Since Vermouth, the sacred sword hasn't recognized anyone. At the entrance, the chief opened the lion door and told Eugene to go choose while he waited outside. Eugene then went to test the sacred sword. This is a sword that has existed since the origins of the sacred empire of Eurus. It was sealed for a long time in the temple and only recognized Vermouth as its master. 300 years ago, this was the sword that pierced the demon king of Massacre. However, after that, it was only used as a torch. Eugene placed his hand on the sword and tried to pull, but it didn't budge at all. He gave up and went to look at something else. Next to it was the Sword of Gluttony, a sword that consumes the mana it cuts and turns it into its own power. The only reason Vermouth could use it was that he was an excellent mage. There was also the Carbos Draconic Lance, the Wyneth Stormblade, a sword blessed by the Elemental Spirit King, the Thunder Resounding Bow, and a sword that transforms into a whip. However, Eugene didn't see the Moonlight Sword or the Demonic Spear, which made him think that over time, these weapons were stolen. So, he considers taking the Wyneth since he can use its powers just by wielding it, and if mana accumulates, it's possible to summon the Elemental King. Besides weapons, there were accessories and gems. There in front, he sees a necklace that he had in his past life, the inheritance of his parents who were killed. He managed to avenge them later and continued using the necklace until the day of his death. Eugene wonders if Vermouth brought his body back because 300 years ago there was a promise made between Vermouth and the Demon King of Imprisonment, which led to peace. And so, he gets irritated, wondering what happened. But he doesn't want to hold a grudge against his companions since there must have been a reason they couldn't defeat the rest. In this place, there are several weapons he desires, but he prefers to keep this necklace even so, until the chief asks if he's being honest. Seeing that the necklace is just an old and simple object, nothing valuable, arises the question, what was it doing in the vault? He tries to check with the lion statue, but this necklace is not registered in the vault. Therefore, this is not one of Lionheart's treasures since it has no value. However, Eugene really wants to keep it. The chief decides to send the Tower Master to evaluate the item. And since this wasn't a treasure, the chief says he can pick something else he wants from inside. Eugene rushes straight for the Wyneth sword, because that will be his choice. Later, the girl with the spear asks why he didn't pick a spear, while another suggests he should have chosen an axe. He takes the opportunity to invite him to go to his family's house to get some muscle medicine, but the girl tells Eugene to take the sword out. She's the Stormblade Wyneth sword, blessed by the elemental king of the wind, and as soon as he has mana, he'll be able to summon him. Even though that's cool, the girl still prefers a spear. Eugene comments that there were many spears in there. Not fooled, she asks if the Rowintus spear was there because that's definitely the strongest weapon, as it was used by the Demon King of Brutality. 300 years ago, there were 5 Demon Kings, of Apocalypse, Imprisonment, Fury, Brutality, and Massacre. Gargus adds that the most powerful one is the Destructive Crusher Gigalas, which was used by the Demon King of Massacre. While they discuss which weapon is the strongest, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Now, Eugene puts on a beautiful show of sword skills because, from today, his true story will begin to expand in this world until he becomes the most powerful person of all. Join us on this adventure. While the two discuss which is the strongest weapon among Vermouth's treasures, Eugene thinks both are good, but if he had to choose the most powerful, it would be the Moonlight Blade, the very destruction in the form of a sword sealed in the deepest places of Helmuth. Both Demon Kings of Brutality and Massacre were killed by this devastating sword. As it's the first time he's holding a real blade in this life, he begins to train sword movements, impressing the buff guy and the girl with the spear. In the chief's room, the Tower Master analyzes the necklace Eugene took from the vault. In fact, there is no magic in this necklace, and he even asks if Eugene was mocking him by saying the necklace was in the vault. But there was no reason for him to do that since he wouldn't gain anything if he didn't let him come back and pick another one. And so, the master says he'll look deeper into the history of this necklace, using a magic that can read memories from mana, a magic that the great sage Sienna created, since mana exists everywhere, and objects also possess some kind of mana. So, he'll read the mana memories of this necklace. Using the ability, he realized that it's about 100 years old and is on sale on the capital street, and from here on, you can't see anything else. And also, as it's not important, he'll give the necklace to Eugene. And then, even the master realizes that he started to like the boy, and actually, he decided to accept that advice. He'll adopt Eugene into the direct lineage of the family as his son. The next day, the chief's younger brother came to greet Eugene, and this is Guillaume Lionheart, who never married even after reaching the age and joined Galad on his journeys. He came all hugging Eugene because he won the lineage ceremony, but actually, he came to take him because the chief is calling, and he wanted to see him personally because he heard a lot about Eugene, as it's a tradition that only the head of the family can observe the ceremony, even though this time the Tower Master showed up to help. And so, they went to the chief, while Eugene asks why he's being called, but it turns out neither of them knew anything. At the door, he just said goodbye and went in, while Eugene was even impressed by this overly nice personality. Entering inside, the chief apologizes for calling so suddenly and says he asked Liberium to evaluate the necklace, but in the end, it's just a normal necklace, and even reading the memory, there was no anomaly. Then Eugene even startles remembering the mana memory, which was the magic used by Sienna in the past, so he asks what the memory of that is. But it's said that this necklace was sold on the streets of the capital 100 years ago, but we know that can't be true since it was the same necklace he wore. So, probably, it could have been something like a new magic that covered the true memories of this necklace, and since there's no way for him to find out now, he just asks if he can keep this necklace. And so, he keeps it, while the chief says that wasn't the only reason he was called. In fact, the other reason, albeit sudden, he wants to make a proposal. And when he hears proposal, he already starts saying that Seal is very kind and cute, but he doesn't want to think about marriage now, and he's also too young. But who said he's talking about marriage? And actually, he misunderstood everything. The chief didn't want to make him marry Seal, he called Eugene here to adopt him as a son. So, Eugene was shocked because he didn't expect that, and the chief continues saying that if he's willing, he's thinking of calling his father to the main family too. Then he asks if he'll have 2 fathers, but actually, this only means that his family will come to the main lineage because he's already the father of 3 children and doesn't want to steal anyone's son, and from now on, he'll respect his father as his own brother. And in the end, Eugene said he can't decide this on his own, he needs to ask his father what he thinks. So the chief says they'll decide after the banquet and also send a messenger to bring his father here. And meanwhile, Eugene asks why he said that if he accepted this it would be better for his future, but of course, if he grows up in the main family he can enjoy countless benefits because there are many knights here who can teach him. And Eugene says if he were to learn, he wants to do it with the best, and already asks if he could learn from the head of the family if he accepted the proposal because he's curious about how strong he is. And the boss, in a good mood, accepts, but if he really wants to learn from the best, there is a more suitable person, which would be his younger brother, Gion. And so, he asks if Eugene has already learned about mana, but in reality, he didn't want to learn to avoid accidentally training, since a mana stone can be found inside high-level monsters. To gain access to mana, a mana stone is required. The more efficient the stone, the more expensive and difficult to obtain. Furthermore, to use it fully, one needs the help of an experienced person. The family Eugene belongs to was an inadequate environment to nurture his talent. But of course, he didn't mention this part, even though it's true, he doesn't want to offend his family. They ended up extending the conversation for a while until Eugene finally left. And in the corridor, he already smelled perfume and noticed someone behind that pillar. As he passed by, the second wife came out, all acting, "Oh, Eugene, you're passing by here." He greets and introduces himself, while she mentions that she heard he was talking with the patriarch. Straightforwardly, he asks her if she has something to say. Even if she's irritated by his arrogance, this boy will grow a lot in the future, so it would be better to be friendly with him. She even thinks about the idea of marrying him to Seal. But in the end, she said she was curious about what they were talking about. Eugene straightforwardly says he shouldn't disclose the issues discussed with the patriarch. She starts talking about the trouble with Cyan and how he didn't apologize properly. But in the end, nothing happened, and he left thinking he'd like to avoid getting involved with her. 2 days later, Eugene's father finally arrived from Jidal, crying because his son won the ceremony. Even though Eugene showed talent from a young age, he couldn't support his talent. He just thought Eugene would have to face reality at the lineage ceremony. But that was just what he thought because there was Eugene in front of the family head, and as the onion chopping ninjas did their job well, while he hugged his son. Then he also greets the family head and is called to talk inside. There, he makes the same adoption proposal for Eugene and his family to come to the main residence. But, in reality, his father is worried about others' reaction. Even though the family takes legitimacy seriously, he doesn't want to limit Eugene's future because ultimately, it would be good for everyone if Eugene grows and develops with the other children. So, Daddy asks to talk to Eugene first. And there, the crazy guy was training, and judging by his father's appearance, the conversation must have been shocking. He starts by saying he would like to accept the proposal because it's the best choice for his future, even if he may go through difficult times in the family. But he just says his father has known him since he was little and that he would never let anyone take advantage of him. And even though he is adopted, his true and only father is Jihad. And so, the onion cutters passed by as he thought that he had no intention of becoming the head of the family. Therefore, there are only 2 ways to deal with discontent and hostility. You can either ignore it or destroy it directly. In this way, the patriarch Gillard invited all the families of the children to attend the banquet. Eugene's father was there while 2 men arrived, saying that his son was incredible. Just by looking, you could tell who their sons were, the father of the muscular one and the father of De Sarah of the spear. While Eugene thought it would be annoying if he got close, on the other side was the second wife with Cyan, saying that from now on people would compare him to Eugene. However, he should not despair because he was still her son and part of the direct lineage, and since Eugene also couldn't become the patriarch, he needed to try even harder, and he should become friends with Eugene because it would help his future. Then, Seal appeared, saying she heard they were siblings now, and since it was true, she asked him to call her Nana, but they weren't that far apart in age for him to do that, even though she was very insistent. In the chief's room, the tower master said he wouldn't accept a pupil without conditions. In the Red Tower, they specialized in summoning magic, and so Iod would have his aptitude tested in Aroth. But because he was a friend of his father, he could give him many opportunities in Aroth, as well as protect him and help him develop his magic. Because of this, his mother then said he should accept, since this was an opportunity his father gave him. And even though he was leaving, he was still her son and destined to become the patriarch of this family. She only said this because she had no choice, as Iod wasn't born with the talents of the lineage. So, it was better for him to form connections with many mages and increase his own power. Thus, the day after the banquet, Iode left with the master for Arath, while the rest of the kids returned to their homes. Eugene and his father ended up with an empty building. Today, he would also have his first lesson about mana. The development of mana is divided into two parts, breathing and body training. Breathing is the act of collecting mana from the atmosphere when you inhale, and body training is when you move your body to collect mana. In his past life, he used body training to develop his mana and later switched to breathing, following the advice of Vermouth and Sienna. Ahead, the one who would teach him mana was Guion. This place where they were was known for its mana veins and was located in the depths of the Patriarch's forest, where there was a mana vein that only the direct lineage descendants could enter. This vein was created by none other than Vermouth 300 years ago. Guion said that since it was the first time, it might be difficult, although it was easier when one was younger. The twins started mana training when they were 6 years old and took 4 days to feel it. In the collateral lineage, they start at Eugene's age, but it takes a month just to sense the mana. So that's it, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified about our next video. Therefore, Eugene asks how many days it will take for him. Guion says it will take up to 10 days. But it won't even take close to 10 days, it won't even take 10 minutes. In the cabin, they descended through an underground entrance. Guion told him to sit in the middle and explained that their mana training technique, passed down from generation to generation, was inherited from the Great Vermouth. There is a rule that secondary families cannot inherit this technique. Hence, they are taught the red flame ritual. The technique passed down only in the main family is the white flame ritual. Despite saying this, Eugene still clearly remembers when Vermouth created a high-density mana layer, and his body was surrounded by white flames. Then, Guion says that since it must be difficult for him to feel mana now, they should start by concentrating on breathing. But Eugene immediately says he can feel the mana. Guion, not believing it, makes a small ball of mana and sends it next to him. Eugene, at the same moment, can already feel the mana here next to him, and now, here and there. Meanwhile, Guion is astonished because he thought 10 days would already be very fast, but he didn't expect it to be 10 minutes, right? Since Eugene can feel the mana, they can start. From now on, he should concentrate on everything happening in his body, imagining a flow of mana with each breath, sending it to his heart. In this way, he was already doing well, too well. Eugene thinks that feeling and inhaling the mana wasn't difficult in his past life, but considering this body is very good at absorbing mana. However, as he is young, there is a limit to what his body can accept. Meanwhile, Guion thinks that the size of the core he formed is incredible because most people start with a much smaller one. So, Guion says that he is a monster, and they left the little cabin. Guion explains that the difference in the family's rituals lies in the core division. In the red flame, you can only have one core in your body, while in the white flame, when it passes a certain point, the core naturally divides because it will be able to store more mana in your body. They call these cores stars. At the beginning of the family, the Great Vermouth had 10 stars. Guion and his brother have 6 stars, while the rest of the boys have 1 star each. By next year, they should reach 2 stars, taking 8 years from one to another. As for Eugene, he will definitely be much faster. Eugene is thrilled because this body is very good, and he also obtained Vermouth's white flame technique. So, Guion bids farewell, and Eugene thinks that since he is training mana, there is something he needs to do. He asks Nina to get Winity for him. Then, he drew the sword and began to channel mana into it until a giant tornado appeared, asking if he is really Hamel. He recognizes that voice because it is the spirit of the Wind King, Tempest. The face above says that there is no way to forget his soul, no matter how much time passes and the face changes, because the soul never changes. Eugene immediately asks why Vermouth didn't kill the Demon Kings, but he himself doesn't know Vermouth's motivations. After all, in the final battle against the King of Incarceration, Vermouth drew his sword and their fight was so fierce, but without results. The last ones standing were Vermouth and the King of Incarceration himself, but Vermouth just sheathed his sword, didn't kill the king, and didn't proceed to the next castle. Then, Eugene asks about the oath. But he can't say because, from the moment Vermouth sheathed his sword, he could no longer intervene. Now, he says that he is running out of time because Eugene's body still has too little mana to summon him. Thus, Tempest disappears and Eugene falls to the ground. When he wakes up, he is already in bed because he had used all the mana in his body. That encounter made one thing clear, he really is Hamel, since the soul hasn't changed. At this point, Nina comes over, asking if he is okay. In fact, he was unconscious for less than half a day. So, she says she will fetch the chief and Mr. Guion. They say that Nina told them what happened when he drew the sword, and a huge tempest blew everywhere. Then, he asks if he summoned a spirit. Thinking it over, he decides he should tell them something, but not everything. So, he says that the King of Wind Spirits appeared, saying he hadn't been summoned in a long time and wanted to see who he was. Although he is lying, it's not entirely wrong. It was something like that. The The king also said that he wasn't strong enough yet. The chief comments that he is an incredible boy because Guillaume told him what happened during the training. In a few days, he will be able to return to training, and Guillaume will also teach him and the two twins at the same time. Thinking of the twins, Seal comments that Eugene got a star. Then, the other twin says that they didn't take long either. It was about a month. They realize that Eugene got it in one day, and so they begin to cross swords. Eugene draws his sword because everyone else left. When he draws it, there is a sylph, a lower spirit, because with the mana he has now, he should only be able to summon that. He stops, thinking about everything that happened, and decides that one day he will go to Helmuth, and also to Arath, where Sienna is, to Eurus, where Anis is, and to Roar, the kingdom that the idiot created. But he can't go now because this young body won't handle it, so he needs to get stronger. Years later, time really flies because Eugene is now 17 years old. Training mana every day without fail, he has already reached 3 stars with the White Flame method, but that still isn't enough. To use this incredible body, he needs to do more than he learned in his past life. That's why he is thinking of going to Arath to learn magic. Cyan doesn't understand. It turns out that this morning, when he was training, he reached 3 stars of mana. He is shocked, asking how that is possible because it was so fast. Eugene promptly says that it makes sense because he is a genius. Cyan, irritated, responds, "I want to kill you. We are not brothers." Cyan says that he gets beaten up every morning, but actually, he's the one who asks to face Eugene every day. Cyan asks why he wants to learn magic now since his brother Iode went there after the ceremony, but his talents weren't good enough to become the master's disciple. Now, 4 years later, he hasn't achieved anything and just wanders around the magic tower. Cyan also mentions that if he goes to Arath, Seal will be sad. But for now, Eugene will meet with the head of the family to talk about the news and his desire to go to Arath to learn magic. Even the head doesn't understand because if he keeps practicing here, he might even reach the 4th star before becoming an adult. But Eugene realized something today. If he keeps doing the same things every day, he won't be able to grow much more. That's why he wants to start learning other styles. Just learning a completely new discipline will be a great experience for him. He asks the Patriarch to grant him this favor. The Patriarch understands his intentions but asks Eugene to promise one thing, not to get involved with black magic, as in Arath there is a black tower where wizards who use this magic gather. Unlike in the past, there are no rumors of danger nowadays. However, the Lionhearts are descendants of the Great Vermouth and have rules against black magic. Eugene knows well the atrocities these powers have caused in the past, so there's no need for concern as he also hates that kind of people. When he was passing by the door, he heard a noise telling him to speak with her quickly. She didn't want to come out because she was training and was sweaty. She asks if he's really going to Arath, and he replies that he wants to learn magic. While he's away, her and Cyan's skills might catch up to his, though Eugene finds this quite unlikely. But for him, that's fine as the duels will become interesting. Lately, he hasn't been dueling with her either. She asks if, by dueling with him from now on, he would give up going to Arath, but he responds that no, he's still going. Then, she asks how long he'll stay there. He says it will probably take a few good years. He also mentions that his father will be fine without him, as he's already accustomed to life at the main house and, going out hunting, he even lost some weight. Anyway, Eugene is heading to Arath and asks her to train diligently. As he was leaving, she appears at the door asking if he's really going because she didn't want him to go. It became clear that she actually likes him a lot. Then, he went to tell his father that he was going to Arath. His father just asks him to be careful and have a good journey. Finally, it's time for his departure, as he would go through the portal. Eugene says he doesn't need guards because he can defend himself. Thus, he tells his father to stop crying, even though he was all composed before. This way, Eugene goes to the capital of the magical kingdom of Arath, Pentagon, where there are 5 magic towers forming a pentagram around the palace. Eugene had been to Arath in his past life, but things have changed a lot. That is the floating station and, even among the countless magical kingdoms, Arath is the only one to have its teleportation portal in the sky. Right ahead, Eugene's guide says that this is incredible and that Pentagon has more than 15 different floating stations, all created by the wise Sienna. He asks if the floating carriage was also her work, and it's true, it was. But since it's a technology from hundreds of years ago, they constantly maintain it. When the guide was about to talk about the tourist attractions, Eugene says he wants to visit the mansion of the wise Sienna. That was a good choice because, coming here, it's essential to visit the mansion of the sage, the magic tower, and the city at night. The guide tells that, 300 years ago, after returning from battles, Sienna became the youngest master of the tower. So, in the green magic tower square, there's a bronze statue of her, The mansion was where she stayed until the end, because, about 200 years ago, Sienna left a letter saying she was retiring and left the mansion. Since then, no one knows where she went. Many wizards tried to locate Sienna, but no one was able to find out where she is. And so his theory is that Miss Sienna went to Devil Dam because in that year, 200 years ago, it was the 100th year since she abandoned the body of the foolish Hamel. So, he believes she must have gone to avenge her friend because before dying, Hamel still confessed his love for her. Eugene was bursting with anger hearing such nonsense. In addition to this theory, there are others about Miss Sienna's retirement. A famous story says that she despised black magic and demons and constantly opposed the construction of the Black Magic Tower. So, some people think that black mages killed her. But Eugene knows that's not possible because Sienna couldn't be killed by the abilities of a black mage unless it was one of the demon kings. So, he wonders if she really died. At the mansion, there were some people at the door praying to pass the admission test and enter the magic tower. Since they don't have money to enter, they stay in the garden praying. Eugene handed his ID to the guard and finally could enter. Inside, he saw that the mansion was huge and heard that Sienna lived there for 100 years. He remembered that, in the past, she asked what he would do after all that. Since they were wasting their youth in that place, they should have a little fun when it was all over. But Hamel never stopped to think about it. The idiot moron said he wanted to become a king. Sienna replied that it didn't matter what he wanted because anyone could dream. Eugene remembered he had said the same thing and felt ashamed. So, he asked her what she wanted to do. Sienna said she wanted to have a normal life, get married, have children, and become a grandmother. However, despite wanting that, she lived 100 years alone. When Eugene was about to touch the painting, the guard warned that he couldn't do that. He continued looking at the mansion, thinking she might have left a clue there. But he remembered that the thing with the necklace also didn't make sense. Did someone have any involvement with his reincarnation? After searching and finding nothing, he stopped in front of the same painting. He decided he would do it his way. When the guard turned his back, he pointed his finger at Sienna's painting and said that if she was bothered, she should come in person. Of course, if she was still alive. Now, he was heading to the Red Tower and took the opportunity to ask the guide if he heard about Iode. The guide replied that he didn't know much, but heard that Mr. Iode usually goes out at night to seek entertainment. This entertainment would be with a succubus. Eugene became furious, asking why the hell there was a succubus there if they weren't in Helmuth. The guide explained that, although they weren't there, Aroth had the Black Tower, and many mages and demons lived in the city. These things were normal in Aroth, where there was a street famous for the black market and shops with succubi. He just heard that Iode often goes there. The name of this street is Bolero, and it only opens on the full moon night, once a month. Even so, Eugene was angry at Iode, and although it was just a rumor, he had to find out the truth and control his urge to beat Iode. At the Red Tower, a mage greeted Eugene at the door, informing him that the master planned to greet him personally, but there was an unexpected event. At that moment, there was an explosion coming from above. And that's because the Red Tower is focused on summoning, being the magic with the highest probability of failure. Upstairs, two monsters were coming out the window while the master destroyed them and scolded the students heavily. Until he saw Eugene down there and came down all smiling, saying that he had grown a lot. After Eugene trained his mana, he realized that Lobirium was really strong, although it didn't come close to Sienna. But at that moment, the master felt someone at the door. When he cast a wind, Iode was there behind, with his face all messed up. He didn't even look like he was 19 years old. Anyone could see that this bum had all his life essence sucked by a succubus. With that cocky face, Eugene said hi while Iode didn't even know what to say, and the master told him to get out. Later, Eugene explained that he didn't want to learn magic from the Tower Master, as everyone would hold a grudge against his family. So, he wanted to learn the art of magic alone. As that was what he wanted, if he had any doubts, he could just talk to Hera. A month after arriving at the tower, Eugene went to the library daily. He read magical texts from morning until afternoon and then went to sleep. In addition, he trained other things besides magic. He spent hours training mana before going to the library and exercised his body every night. He slept less, but his incredible body recovered quickly, until he finally read all the beginner-level books. Today is the day to test magic. But 300 years ago, Sienna divided the stages of magic into 5 levels, and this was the same style she used. As she became the master of the Green Tower, many mages began to follow this methodology, which is based on circles, meaning a circular ring of mana to create magic. Now, 300 years later, most mages learn magic using circles, and those who don't are the ones who use elemental magic or black magic. In the room, Hera is explaining that they will use circles since this is an efficient method. However, Eugene wants to modify them even though it is not recommended because he wants to use it alongside the white flame method. Hera explains that mana is used differently in magic and martial arts, and if mana goes out of control, he could get seriously injured. But that's exactly why he wants to test it. So she agrees because it will be better for him to see with his own eyes and starts invoking his staff in case things get dangerous and she needs to help. Eugene starts pouring out mana because the white flame method and circles are different, but in essence, they are literally the same. In the ritual, mana is passed through the stars, while in circles, it passes through a hook. Therefore, he is replacing the circles with his stars to increase the mana. Hera is astonished because he is controlling a massive amount of mana effortlessly. He then created a fireball in his hand but reduced it until it became a magic missile. He asks her to summon a monster to test the strength of this magic, and she summons a golem made of Cabrian, known to be very resistant. He points and shoots, and it makes a huge impact. Later, she tells the Tower Master about Eugene's crazy way of combining the two methods. Regardless of the type of magic, his offensive power is above that of a three-circle mage. At this point, the Master is not just impressed but scared of this monstrous talent. After all, the 3 stars of the white flame ritual could be equivalent to the third circle. After that, she mentions that Eugene left because he had some plans. Eugene asks if it would be absurd to write a recommendation letter for the Royal Library Acreon, a place where only high-level mages and great aristocrats can enter. He believes Eugene is qualified enough because he mastered all introductory magic texts in a month and made a huge hole in the Cabrian golem. So, he decides to write the letter because someone with such talent should be treated accordingly, even if other mages might complain. He then asks what plans Eugene has for today, but actually, Eugene says he is going to see a friend. At Merdane Square, Eugene stands in front of Sienna's bronze statue, thinking she always smiled like that when doing something with magic. At that moment, the muscular guy appears. Now, he is full of beard, almost confusing Eugene with his father. Just shaking Eugene's hand, he can see that Eugene is stronger, and as always, he has brought the secret muscle growth remedy. But Eugene rejects it as always and tells him to stop sending those remedies. Then, Eugene wants to know what he is up to, and Gargus asks if he knows about the Bolero Alley, the same one the guide said Iode goes to. According to him, there's a rumor that a giant's testicle is being auctioned there. Eugene, confused, asks, "Testicle?" But Gargus explains that giant testicles are very valuable to mages, and he wants to make a muscle growth supplement with this testicle. That's why he wants Eugene to come along because he brought a lot of money but isn't sure if it will be enough. He even kneels in the middle of the street, making a lot of drama and saying he would pay with interest. So Eugene agrees while saying he heard there will be high-value items at the auction. However, Eugene is more interested in the street because a few days ago, he saw Iode at the tower, and he showed signs of being drained by a succubus. Therefore, during this full moon, Iode will probably go to Bolero Alley. Then Eugene returned to the tower and was going to see the master because he wanted to talk to him. In fact, the master wanted him to take a look at this letter, which is a letter of recommendation for Acreon, the royal library famous for storing an extensive collection of high-level magical knowledge for 300 years, surpassing even the libraries of the magic towers. So Eugene decided to play it humble, saying that this is too much for him right now. Actually, this is the perfect moment because he hasn't delved deeply into magic yet, so the possibilities are endless. Even without fully understanding the magical books there, it will be enough to enhance his knowledge, and this knowledge will one day make his magic shine. Since Acreon stores knowledge from the era of legends, he asked if Sienna's writings are there. Indeed they are, although there are still books of hers in the libraries of the Red and Green Towers. In the last years of her life, Sienna wrote the essence of her magic in the 3rd volume of Witchcraft, and the original manuscript is in Acreon. Witchcraft is one of the best magic books in history, and there is no other copy of it. With this recommendation, only the commercial area is accessible, but even there he will gain sufficient knowledge. The master said that when he read Witchcraft for the first time, all the magic he had learned seemed like child's play. Although he isn't sure if this letter will be enough, he wanted to hear Eugene's opinion. Eugene, thinking to himself, "Of course, it's fine, you idiot, why are you asking?" But he simply said it's fine and asked if there would be any problems. In the end, it's okay. However, Eugene now wanted to know something because when he arrived, he heard rumors that Iode did not dedicate himself to the practice of magic and spent his time having fun with succubi. The master confirmed this is true, but he couldn't do anything to stop Iode. In the past, many people died after having their energy drained by a succubus. But when Helmuth opened its borders, the demons completely changed their attitude. The same applies to the succubi, they still drain life force but don't kill anyone because the Nightmare Queen forbade it. However, none of this justifies his brother's actions. The master tried to understand Iode's perspective because he came to Arath 4 years ago, arriving full of expectations, even though his talent wasn't enough. He went through many difficulties, and they even tried to help, but Iode couldn't live up to the expectations of carrying the family name. The master even warned him not to get too involved, or he would have lost control long ago. So, Eugene understood a bit because in the main family, there are the wives making plans, and the twins with ambition and talent, which put a lot of pressure on Iode. Staying in the tower, even being mocked, is better than returning to the main family. Eugene decided he needed to see this with his own eyes. On the night of the full moon, he and Gargus were disguised because if rumors spread that they are here, it could tarnish the family's reputation. At that moment, someone called on the communicator, asking if he had entered, because this communicator only works inside. The guide said he would give the signal as soon as he saw Iode. According to him, Iode never uses disguises, he always comes wearing the same clothes. Eugene thought that if he were his son, he would beat him until he learned good manners because if you don't learn by good means, you have to learn by bad ones. So they were heading to the auction house first. On Bolero Street, there are several houses, but they all have the same rule, silent bids, as all people are taken to different rooms and the bidders cannot be identified. The masked man said that this table has 3 buttons. If he wants to bid, press the middle button. If he wants to increase the bid, it's the right button, and if he needs any other kind of assistance, it's the left button. In this way, another masked man appeared on the screen presenting the auction. The first item of the night was a Valorex horn, followed by Prosia fruit, Mandrake root, until Eugene, bored, asked if the testicle would be auctioned today. At least that's what Gargus had heard. The next item was a metal object made of unknown material. This item had already been sold, but the buyers saw no value and sent it back. It was found in the Khazard Hills in Helmuth, and it even emits a beautiful glow when placed under the moonlight. Besides that, it has no other use but can be placed as a decoration on your window. The starting bid for it was 1 million sals. When Eugene saw it, he immediately pressed the button because he didn't think he would find that there, the moonlight sword, a blade said to be destruction in its own form, even though it had never been written in history. Since no one else bid, he went to pick it up while Gargus asked why he bought something useless. But looking closely, there was no doubt this was a fragment of the moonlight sword. In the Khazard Hills where they found this, it was the same place they found the sword in one of the deepest dungeons, so he wondered if Vermouth returned it there when he left Helmuth because the moonlight sword is very dangerous, being a cursed blade that only accepted Vermouth as its bearer and brought destruction every time he wielded it. However, this fragment held no power and didn't have that previous ominous feeling. Then the communicator buzzed, and the guy said Iode had arrived. So Eugene left and gave the card to the muscular guy to borrow money. Outside, he was told to head north on the street to a shop called Rafflesia, and at the door, 2 big guys asked if he was a customer. While thinking that, in his past life, he would have killed them at first glance, the one on the left said that the entrance fee is 2 million sals. He handed over 2 notes and went in, looking for Iode. So he asked the woman where the dreams were, and she, saying he was cute for being in a hurry, replied that the dreams were in the hall downstairs and invited him to have a drink first. But he didn't want any of that and said he would go down now. Thus, she guided him to the room while saying she would just take a bit of his essence. Since he had seen everything there was to see in the hallways, he simply said it was better to go sleep at home. He handed a note to the woman and asked where the exit was. She led him to the restaurant that was right outside. So he was there eating, when 2 thugs came through the same door carrying someone. Yes, it was him, the good-for-nothing Iode. Eugene was outraged by the way the eldest of the family acted, so he followed the 2 demons until they entered a house. When Eugene got close, 3 henchmen appeared, saying this wasn't a shop. One of them grabbed Eugene by the neck. But why did he do that, my boy? Eugene hit him in the face, and when the guy fell, the others came at him too. Eugene punched them both, asking what kind of place this was. When he looked around, the guys were already unconscious, so he went inside to see for himself, bursting through the door. From the smell of the smoke, the good-for-nothing must be into herbs too. At that moment, a wolf-like man asked what he was doing there. Eugene started clapping, because a human, a beast man, and a demon were getting high together. They came at him, but all they got was a barrage of magical shots. Then, Eugene drew his sword and, using the power of wind, saw that the rooms on the 1st and 2nd floors were empty. The only place left was the 3rd floor. So he fired a shot upwards and leaped until there was only one room. At the door, he could see a strange energy, so he threw that sword fragment at it, and it worked, because even as a fragment, the sword's special property was still functioning. When one of them stepped out, he asked if that was black magic, and the guy there didn't understand, because that door's magic was supposed to kill Eugene. While Eugene remembered the family head saying not to get involved with black magic, his own son was involved in it. With a grim face, Eugene told the scoundrel to get out of his way. Furious, he was already using the white flames. Then the demons who brought Iod appeared, so he just prepared his sword and, with the first slash, the one on the right was gone. When the other came at him with claws, the claws, along with the hand, went flying away. Now, Eugene smacked him in the face with his hand as his disguise disappeared. At that moment, the guy froze, because this was Eugene telling him to get out of his way. Meanwhile, he was trying to explain to Eugene, but at the same moment, he pulled out his staff and cast a spell. But Eugene blocked it with his sword and brought the sword right up to his neck, telling him to stay still. There ahead was Iod, lying on a bed with a chalice used for rituals. Inside the chalice was a unicorn heart. Eugene asked what he was trying to do with that. The guy said they were making a contract with Baron Ulfer of Helmuth. This baron was an incubus subordinate to Duchess Noir Jebella, the Witch Queen of the Night, who had lived for 300 years. So Eugene asked if Iod was sacrificing a unicorn heart while drunk and high to make a contract with a mere incubus. The other man knelt and said that was what Iod wanted and that the money for the heart was also given by him. Eugene, understanding the situation, knows that if Iod had sealed the contract, he would have received an absurd amount of power from his master. The fault lay with Iod's greed for wanting to initiate the contract. When Eugene sees Iod lying down, he gives him a wake-up, soldier slap to the face. Iod, confused, asks why Eugene is there. Eugene responds, "I was told you were having problems." He tried to understand, but Iod shouldn't dirty his hands with black magic. As a direct descendant, you dared to attempt making a contract? Iod, trying to justify himself, says it was something he couldn't control. Eugene, irritated, headbutts him because there is no such thing as not being able to control it. When you make a contract, your soul becomes the possession of the demon, meaning you become just a puppet. This brings shame to the entire family. Iod tries to make various excuses, saying he didn't need to follow everything the demon asked, but Eugene retorts, promises mean nothing to them. Iod tries to assert himself, asking who Eugene thinks he is to insult him, saying he knows nothing. But Eugene responds, saying he received the same support as him, inherited the white flames. The reason he is better is not just because of talent, he trained hard every single day. Even the twins are giving their best in the main house while he is here, addicted to drinks, high, and chasing dreams. Iod, desperate, starts saying he will become a black mage and go to Helmuth, or he will be recognized. Eugene, irritated, gives him another slap in the face. This way, besides being the firstborn of the Lionheart, he has no value at all. Even having everything he ever wanted, he is still crying and playing the victim. Eugene decides he doesn't need to hear this nonsense anymore and picks up the communicator. Shortly after, the guards arrive and take the hooded man away, while the master is also there, clearly pissed off. Iod, with his face beaten, tries to justify himself, saying he did nothing wrong. The master, furious, says that Iod has shamed the name of Lionheart, besides insulting his own father and all the mages of the Red Tower who taught him. Iod still tries to make excuses, but the master cuts him off, telling him not to give those excuses to him but to his own parents. After that night, the master called Gillard and the first wife to Arath, as well as another person, the master of the Black Magic Tower, Balzac. Balzac is a person who has held the position of Tower Master for decades, besides being one of the 3 legendary black mages who have a contract with the King of Imprisonment. The first wife, angry, asks what he is doing there. The master says that the Black Tower has nothing to do with this. While she was making a scene, Balzac explains that the tower does not hire all black mages. The warlock leading this cult is named Gavid, and he is not affiliated with the Black Tower but rather with the Mages Guild. Guys, what do you think of the story? Subscribe for the next parts. Goodbye.